working drummer.
Now kick it.
This is the Working Drummer Podcast, serving up perspectives, experiences, and stories from ground-level working pros. Advice, tips, and secrets on how to build a career in the music business.
Hey everybody, this is Matthew Krause, and you are listening to the podcast Working Drummer. Today is my interview with drummer John Root. John defines what it means to be a working drummer in Nashville, Tennessee. Since his move to Nashville in 1993 from Connecticut, John has covered it all from international touring to studio work to maintaining a steady stream of work in Nashville's lower Broadway district. John pulls from his years of experience in creating full-time work for himself, as well as defining success on his own terms. As always, you can go to workingdrummer.net where you can find out more information about this podcast, see pictures, and find out information about other podcasts we've done. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Go to iTunes. You can subscribe to this podcast where a new episode will be sent to your smart device. Please, if you will, leave a comment, rate the podcast. It really helps us out a ton. Let's get to it. Here is John Root. The gig that you were playing with the band 5 days a week.
Oh, Lower Broadway.
Yeah,
Lower Broadway. Playing with the band on Lower Broadway, doing 5 or 6 gigs a week. And
That's a reliable.
It's
every
income.
Week.
It's income
every week. Yeah, right.
And it's an account. And I came down with the flu, and so I was out for 2 weeks. And then I had a week planned away where I was going to Kansas to play with a different band.
Okay.
And so in that time, they kept working, and they subbed out to Rick McClure. So Rick was doing the gigs, and Rick at the same time was playing with Lori Morgan and playing the Opry.
Yeah.
So Rick would bring the singer, she wanted to meet Lori Morgan. He brings her to the Opry, and she's all, stargazing at the Opry.
Right.
And she gets it in her head, well, geez, John's been with me about 4 or 5 years, but, if Rick was my drummer, I'd get to go to the Opry all the time. And I get the phone call. Hey, we're going to make a change.
Yeah.
And I talked my way into her giving me a month notice instead of it just being cold and hard,
Yeah.
Because I was planning on planning on paying bills,
Right.
And she felt bad about it, but she was still standing by what she wanted to do. And
did she have an explanation, or was it?
It was just, we're going to make a change. It was just that, she'd heard somewhere that that's what you say in Nashville when you don't want to tell the truth.
Man.
And so boom, I'm down to nothing,
Yeah.
And thankfully today I've got 5 steady gigs a week, and it's with 4 different bands.
Yeah.
So I don't have all my eggs in one basket now.
Yes.
So if someone takes a week off or something were to happen, I still have other work.
Right. And it's funny because I always relate that whole idea to mutual funds.
Mutual funds.
Right, where you diversify.
Right.
Because if one stock plummets, you've got some backup.
Yeah.
This is coming from somebody who has very little investment, but the analogy fits.
Yeah.
And if you're in a position where you can have many plates spinning, gig-wise and otherwise. We were just talking about this before because I was saying, man, it's like there's the road gig, and then I've got family stuff, and then the podcast thing is going on, and we're talking about diversifying, and that's kind of what you have to do in the music business. Without getting too far off, though, I mean, that's kind of how you make it work. Right now, some people have one gig, and that's me right now,
right.
In general. But I think you have to find ways to, if it's not playing, maybe other things. Maybe it's teching.
Well, I've got that drum tech thing I do for 8 stages downtown, and I still got my hands on drums, so I feel fortunate, that they're paying me to take care of, their drums.
Yeah, and you've been doing that for a little while.
Probably about 8-9 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's the one thing. Okay, so, well, tell me real quick.
Let me just finish this though.
Yeah.
I've got no hard feelings with Rick, for what had happened. Rick didn't say, "Hey, give me the gig and I'll take you to the Opry." It was just the way things happened, and Rick felt real bad about him stepping in after I was cut loose.
Yeah.
But that's just the way this stuff works, you know?
Right.
And
I think that's an important point, though.
And then 2 months later, she moves out of town, you know?
So it's possible, it's quite possible that you and Rick could have gotten into it over that.
Oh, yeah.
And sullied that some relationship or friendship.
But it's business. And you can't take this stuff personal.
No.
And that's really hard because we put our heart on our sleeve. We're playing. We're making people happy. Ooh, I'm playing drums. You know, this is so great. It's just business. We're business just like a lawyer working at MAPCO or Garbage Man. It's the same thing. Right. We're not special because we play music. Yeah. I don't think so.
Well, no, I think you're right. I mean, I think you have to observe it that way if this is what you do for a living.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be real careful. I mean, you have to protect yourself, especially maybe more so if you're a hired player or if you work as a hired gun. Again, I mentioned to you that, you know, I did a session in Columbus years ago, and then they said, here's the record. Oh, by the way, 3 of the tracks, we got someone else to replace your parts. I couldn't, you know, it's like it kind of hurt, but it's like that was a lesson right there. That it's not about me. My name wasn't on the record except maybe in the credits in the very bottom small print.
Right.
It's not about me.
No, you're not all of a sudden a member of the Opry because the artist you're working for is playing the Opry.
Yes.
You know, don't feel like, hey, you know, I'm on the Opry now because that changes in a minute.
Yeah. You didn't play with John Fogerty because your band opened up for the opener that opened up for John Fogerty. Right.
You didn't share the stage really with, you know. I've shared the stage with John Fogerty, you know. He played the fair 2 weeks later, you know.
There's a really cool band on one of the cruise ships. They're from Quebec. And these guys are sweet. They're really awesome. We'd hang with them on some of these cruise ship gigs, and they said, yeah, these guys played with Asia. You know, a couple of the members have worked with Asia. And I was like, wow, that's cool. So I'm hanging out with them. I said, so what's the story about you guys working with Asia? And it's like the guitar player played in a band, and when Asia came through his town in Quebec, they opened up for them twice.
Hey, man, grasp on to whatever you can, I guess, you know?
And, of course, I'm like, that's awesome, man. That's really cool. And they were proud of that. And that happened in 1982.
Hey, Asia was hot, man.
Yeah.
It's not like they were opening for Asia a month ago.
Right. Hey, man, it was the heat of the moment.
It was. So, put him chink. But, you know, the something this reminded me of is when I first came here.
In 1993.
Like 23 years ago yesterday. Yeah. I came here on a Wednesday, and on Friday I had a gig playing every Friday night on the Grand Ole Opry on the gospel show.
Yeah.
There's a gospel show every Friday night after the Opry. And so because of that, all of a sudden I was like bona fide, you know, where, you know, you come to town, you got to get some gigs under your belt or whatever so people get to know you or, hey, who's this new guy type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I just slipped right into this spot. And so the musical director, you know, was hiring me for these sessions. And so I'm playing, you know, with A-Team, literally the A-Team guys, you know, Caps and Billy Linneman and Mike Leach and just all these players. And once in a while, the band leader, the musical director, he would hire another drummer instead of me for these sessions. Mm-hmm. And I was kind of like, you know, new to town. And I'm like, I'm upset about it. I'm like, man, you know, I should say something to him that, you know, you don't treat, you know, I'm your guy. I'm here for the gigs. You know, why are you hiring these other people? You know, he's hiring like Buddy Harmon and Gene Christman instead of me. You know, you can't feel that way. You know, what good's it going to get you if you did say something? Mm-hmm. You know, is he going to call you again? Are you going to lose the gig you already have with him? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I mean, it's Buddy Harmon and Gene Christman. You know, those are, you know, stellars of the society here.
Right.
And you have to learn that this is business, you know, and you got to be fortunate for any phone call you get.
Exactly. And I mean, and to be in that company though, that's got to mean something too.
You learn. I mean, with Mike Leach. I'm at the session. I'm real green in town, and Mike Leach is a bass player. Played on Always on My Mind, Elvis Presley records, the Box Tops, the Letter, just major. And I say to Mike, "Hey, Mike, so what pattern you gonna play on the verse? What pattern you gonna play in the chorus?" Thinking, half note, dotted. Yeah. And he looks at me and he goes, "I don't play patterns. I play music."
Oh, jeez.
And I just wanted to crawl underneath my drums, oh my God, and then what's he mean, and then, just learning and growing into that, Do you
think he was just busting your balls? Because it's just to kind of...
I think he was kind of busting my balls a little bit, but I also feel like, he wasn't gonna have, he didn't want to waste his time talking about it.
Yeah.
It's like Tommy Wells would say, you never talk with the bass player about what you're going to play. You just play it.
Yeah.
And especially you listen to old Waylon records and, what's going on between the bass drum and the bass guitar is not always the same thing.
Yeah.
And, the bass player's playing quarter notes, but the drummer's playing half notes on the kick. And then there's little inflections. And then, the drummer heard the bass player put that inflection. So then he does it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're having a conversation.
Yeah.
And then you grow the arrangement so that maybe the last chorus you're playing 4 on the floor.
Yeah.
To build the song that way.
Yeah.
But you're doing it because you're listening to what everyone else has to say, not doing it because, this is the way this song goes.
Yeah. And I think what happens is a lot of those guys, they're tracking and they're taking the first take or the second take. So when that conversation is happening and people are reacting off the music, there's that magic that happens.
Right.
And I notice that on recordings because, man, I am the same as you. I would be in there and I'm like, hey, what's the pattern? Are we going to do, just straight up on the chorus and then, or on the verse, just quarter notes on the verse and then maybe the end of 2 on the chorus, something like that. And we've had those conversations and the bass player's like, yeah, let's try that. And we sterilize it.
Yeah.
Because I had a chance to talk Tommy Wells into letting me hang out at a demo session. And I noticed, that was one of the things I noticed, and this was when I first moved to town, that he and the bass player did not have that conversation. They just went in and played, and I'm like, how do they know to change the pattern in the chorus? Maybe they work together all the time. And maybe they did, but that wasn't the point. They were having that conversation.
Right.
And
that's just, you gotta be that way with the rhythm guitar, with the keyboard player.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just with the bass player, but it's everyone there. We're trying to take all our individual parts and make one voice with it.
Yeah. Because when that's captured, it seems like you do 3, 4, 5 takes, and then you go, let's listen to that first take, that second take. Yeah. Okay. Well, might be a punch here or there, but that's magic.
Yeah. Yep.
Even if you're new at it, you're still making music like those A guys that are in recreating magic every time.
Right.
Just reacting off.
But that's it. It's just reacting.
Yeah. And it sounds so much better.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Man, well, I know Tommy's come up several times, and what's it been, like 2 years that he passed away? Maybe 2.5. But for those who don't know, Tommy Wells was just kind of like a mainstay here in Nashville as far as a session player and hockey lover and just overall sweet guy, and one of those guys that would see you and would ask you more questions about you than you ever could about him.
Yep, and it would always be like at Forks, hanging on the counter, sitting on the drum stools.
Yeah, that stuff was so valuable, for sure. Well, tell me about, if you would, like, what does this week look like? Because we've juggled this schedule to get together based on what's going on.
Well, I had a session on Wednesday for an album for a family from Norway.
That's cool.
That was pretty cool. One song was, about rowing a boat across the fjord, and another song was in the shadow of the forest, and then we did some like hippie 60s like Doors type of psychedelic thing.
Yeah.
And then Thursday I had a gig on Lower Broadway with a contemporary band, Mike and Robin.
Yes.
Stone Silo,
Yep.
you know them?
Yeah, I do.
And with Alex and Will, and it's just
cool.
great players and just,
sure.
Fun. Today, I'm here and I have a gig tonight at the rooftop of the stage.
Yeah.
6 to 10, and then I'm playing Layla's tomorrow night, 6 to 10.
Okay.
And normally on Wednesdays, but I had the session come in, I play with a Western swing band, a 7-piece Western swing band.
Yeah. Is that Kevin Key playing guitar?
No, that's a Roberts thing with John England. This is with Mike Seiler at Legends. And Mike's played Legends for like 17 years.
Is this, what time of day is this?
2 to 6.
Okay, so it's an earlier thing.
Yep.
I know anybody that comes to Nashville, if you go to Roberts, you're going to hear more traditional type swing, country, western type stuff. Legends on the corner, though, does not always have...
No, it's more country in the morning and afternoon, and then it goes more rock and roll.
It morphs as the time.
Yeah.
Tell me about that session, though, about like you had these people, did they speak English?
Well, they did speak English, and the guy that owns the studio, he speaks Norwegian. So
nice.
He was a singer over in Norway for years.
Okay.
And so there was no communication problem.
Okay. And was it you by yourself?
No, it was me, bass player and guitar player, Gage and Kevin.
Yeah.
And we'd hear the song one time.
Yeah.
We'd talk over the chart.
Yeah.
And pretty much put it down in the first take.
Nice.
And Gage is a player that knows that we're going to play cat and mouse. That don't listen to me, don't look at me. You know what I mean? Just do your thing.
It's hard to miss.
Just do your thing, and I'm going to do my thing, and we're gonna end on the same page. You know?
Right. What kind of music was it?
It was like a brush and a stick on the first song. You know, mainly just played muted snare drum with the brush and brought the stick in at the bridge.
Yeah.
Cross stick. Then the second song was 2 brushes, wire brushes on that one. The third song was a train beat, nylon brushes, and
so it was kind of country.
It was folky, country, yeah,
right,
yeah.
Okay.
And then the psychedelic song was different than the other ones.
Yeah. How did the gig come about? I mean, did
Paul used to play on Broadway, and I played in his band for 7 years.
Okay.
And
the owner of the...
Yeah, that's Paul Gannon, yeah. We were Paul Gannon's Swampgrass Band.
Okay.
And we played Legends for 7 years straight.
Yeah, okay. So when this stuff comes up, do you work with Paul a lot?
Yeah, pretty fairly.
Is this Big Ear Studio?
Big Ear Studio, yeah.
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times. Yeah, man, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's
and then
great.
Kevin Key, I play on his fiance's records, and we play on different records together, and Gage and I just always kind of understand each other.
So it comes from these mutual relationships, these friendships, the people that you work with, and it's like a satellite of networking, people that you've worked with in the past and currently, and all that
who
stuff.
they trust, you know.
Yeah.
Especially being a drummer, you're the last new guy they're going to bring in on a session, because if you screw up, then everybody's got to come back.
Yeah.
Basically, Yeah. Where, like a fiddle player, they can always just overdub. It's easier to overdub a fiddle player than it is to redo the drums or play on top of someone else's track.
Right. I love that. You're the last new guy or the last less trustworthy individual that's got to be there.
And that makes it hard as a drummer to try and break into the studio scene, because they don't want to take a chance necessarily on a new guy, because they want to make sure it's done on time, on budget.
Right. And if your part isn't right, they can't move forward.
Right.
Because you're the first guy. Ironically, the session I hung out with Tommy was he was overdoing someone's drum part. I think they did 3 songs, and one of them was just him by himself. So they did 2 songs as a group, And then, hey, Tommy, I got one thing for you to do. Guys, I think we're done with you. And they went on to their lunch and did something else. And then they kept him behind, and he just overdid the drum part of a thing. And a couple weeks ago, I actually did a record with a guy who left the drums as the last thing.
Nice.
Not the most traditional thing to do. But it was interesting because I knew what the bass player was doing because he had already done his part. That's a very rare circumstance. But
Yeah.
I'm not undermining your point, but it is true. The drums have to be there before they can move on.
Well, it's the feel, it's the whole approach of the song. Mm-hmm. To go in afterwards is kind of like, you're just, polishing the dishes.
Right,
kind of thing.
right. Can we talk a little bit about Broadway?
Yeah.
And kind of what it has. It's come up several times in the podcast, and it has changed so much.
Yes.
I worked down there off and on since I've moved here. There are players that are very invested in what's going on down there, and when I meet people, and there's different scenes around Nashville, and there are players that have never played down there. And there's different scenes, and when I travel around the country and even around the world for that matter, anybody that's been to Nashville, they know Broadway, and they know a couple key places, but it is so much part of the personality of the scene. Whether you refer to Beale Street,
right,
in Memphis.
Bourbon Street.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, Bourbon Street.
Yeah, Bourbon Street.
Orleans, yeah.
Right, New Orleans, exactly. Yeah. There's different places, and so could you explain kind of what it is, how it's changed in the last 20 years? Maybe some good, bad stuff.
Well, it's the pay is one thing that has definitely changed.
Yeah.
The base pays, and everyone it said, oh, we're only working for tips, which isn't true. There's base pays, and there's good base pays on the weekend.
Yep.
And the biggest struggle down there sometimes is finding some place to park. That's not a bad gig when there's already a drum set up there for you to play.
Yes.
And you just got to bring in your cymbals and the snare drum and a pedal or something, and. But there aren't really bands, once in a while here and there, a shift, which there are 3-4 shifts a day, 11 to 2, 2 to 6, 6 to 10, 10 to 2. Yeah. A shift will become a band, where a group of guys just kind of fell together, and then they start working and become so tight that it grows into something more.
Yeah.
But other than that, you're just basically backing up a front person. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And, you think about Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah.
Well, Sweet Home Alabama with one band is basically the same as Sweet Home Alabama with another band. Mm-hmm. So once you kind of, your songs, you can play just about anything. Yeah. And if you've got ears and eyes, you're going to get through at just about any gig.
Right.
And especially if you got players that are helping you with little cues and things like that. Mm-hmm. But, some people do things, differently, tempo-wise or arrangement-wise. Right. But, how many times have we played behind a singer that, he forgets the second verse and you just jump to the chorus again.
Yep.
So, being worried about, are they going to do it the same way? Well, you could play Dixieland Delight with 5 bands, 7 different ways.
Right.
Because, just what's happening in the moment.
Right. And there's standards there. It's almost like if you go do a jazz standard. Well, that's kind of oxymoron, but
right.
Redundant. You go do a jazz gig, and it's like, well, we're using the standards book,
Yeah.
So you're going to play all the things that you know.
Right, Satin Doll.
Right. Autumn Leaves. And that's kind of the same thing down there.
Yeah.
Where there is a list of songs. And I remember years ago there was a guy that was going around and keeping track of all the songs and was going to make number charts for all the songs. And there's some bands that stay within, or some singers that stay within that kind of that comfort zone, from whether it's like Dixieland Delight and Sweet Home Alabama and Take It Easy and all those songs that everybody knows, especially when you're doing that kind of country rock thing.
Right.
And then, like you say, there's those individual bands that are going to maybe pull in new stuff and maybe stay current. I remember Todd Sansom used to try and, what's the latest Luke Bryan song? What's number one?
I've had to learn Luke Bryan songs to play with Todd.
Right, exactly. And so he stays very current and keeps some of the same guys, and that's for maybe some of the weekend shifts. So players that want to do that, you have to be able to write charts. You have to be able to learn songs real quick, and there's no rehearsing.
No, there's no rehearsing. And even writing a chart, I'll write a chart in 2 listens of the song. The first time, I'll just listen to the song. I'll write the arrangement down. I'm just doing slash marks. I'm not doing numbers. Slash for every bar.
Yeah.
And then the second listen, I'll go in and I'll put little notation things, and get the tempo. And then that's it. I'm not going to go sit behind the drums and bang it out or anything, because a lot of times people will ask you to learn a song and then you won't do it.
Yeah.
And so there it is. I'm going to take a half an hour out of my life, to not do this.
Right.
I got better things to do.
Sure. There was speaking of Alex Stevens, a great bass player, and he's been working down there on and off. He carries these notebooks with him.
Yeah, now he has an iPad.
Okay, now he has the iPad.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
As most players do now.
Yeah.
But at the time, I thought it was interesting, he had these notebooks that he just carried with him. I have charts. I have thousands of charts for different people, and then I have them categorized in whatever such way I can get the set list from them, and then go back in my file cabinet and pull out what I need or what I have already charted at some point, spent that half hour doing. And so he had these notebooks, and it was, chick singers.
Yeah.
So here's all the songs. So here's, we got some Fleetwood Mac, and we've got, all these different chick singer type songs that the singers are going to sing on Broadway. And then he's got another book that's going to be, whether it's going to be if he needs the chart. He's not going to need a chart for Sweet Home Alabama, but he may need a chart for that. Now, what about...
One thing about doing Sweet Home Alabama and Chicken Fried and, Wagon Wheel, these are the biggies, folks, is that the audience we're playing for, that's what they want to hear. They're tourists. They want to come to Nashville and hear the Firemen. Yes. And believe it or not, we probably play the Firemen better than they do at their hometown bar in Idaho.
Yes.
That band there, you know? So it's a thrill for these people. And for us to be like, oh, I don't want to play that song. I want to have integrity.
Yeah.
Integrity is, playing Douglas Corner and calling all your friends and having them pay a $5 or $10 cover charge to come hear you play. Mm-hmm. That's integrity, okay? Mm-hmm. And there are guys, of course, that's what you seek.
Right.
But, if you want to make money with drumsticks in your hands, you got to do these things.
Right.
And to cop an attitude about it is short-sighted.
Yeah.
Because you make the people happy, you're going to be happy.
Yeah.
And I swear, every time someone, calls Rocky Top or Sweet Home Alabama, you look around the stage halfway through the first verse, and all the guys in the band are smiling. We're all having fun playing it. I mean, for us, it's just eighth notes, And if it's these eighth notes or those eighth notes, it's a groove. Yeah. We're still grooving.
But you're talking about working with all these players that you mentioned, like Kevin and Gage. These guys are great players. They've always had good attitudes. I mean, Kevin is probably, and Alex are the guys that I know best. But I mean, their attitudes have always been good. It's always a fun environment. And I would play Sweet Home Alabama with those guys any day over playing something crazy with bad attitudes or whatever. And that's a good point, though, also, is that what makes Broadway unique is that you could play the same club, the same shift every day, and you're going to be playing for a different crowd. They are touring through.
Right.
You're in one spot. Right. And that's the beauty.
It's like a Vegas thing in a sense.
Yes, yeah. So a couple things. Not only are you playing for a fresh crowd every night, and it's the first time they've seen you. It's their experience.
Right.
The thing that I noticed about playing down there, and I don't play down there as much, but I always enjoyed it, was the amount of time we got to play. And, I love to play so much. And so those shifts are 3.5 hour shifts. Right. And so it can be exhausting, but there's the physical, you're getting into it, you're playing. But it is just that. It's exhausting. And then there's people that, if they love you, they're sending shots up to the stage.
Yeah.
And there's that to contend with. And, man, I'm not in my 20s anymore. So, and sometimes if you're playing a shift, say you play till 6 o'clock, and then the next night you're playing till 2 in the morning.
Right.
And again, we're not in our 20s anymore. How do you manage that and try and kind of like stay healthy and try and keep from kind of falling into some of the temptations of staying up all night, drinking too much? I mean, those temptations that having a bar gig is very real.
Yeah.
You're not just on the road getting into a theater. Okay, there's this and there's a very controlled environment. It's very open-ended. You're there, you're driving yourself there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I mean, have you had to kind of say, okay, when I'm done with this, I don't know how you are with that stuff. I just don't know.
Yeah. No, I don't mind, having some shots on on a gig, but you just got to remember things like, well, I got to get home.
Yes.
How much am I going to hurt my family?
Yes.
If something happens.
Yeah.
And what am I? The hardest part about that is that you start the gig and there's not a lot of people there, and so you're a little loose and you're having a couple drinks, and then the crowd starts coming in and they're getting wild, so you're getting a little wilder with them, and then the next band shows up and they're looking at you up on stage, and this is what you're portraying of yourself. This is the drummer I am right now. 3 sheets to the wind. Be an animal. And
yeah.
It's perception,
Right.
You can't worry about what other people think necessarily, but if you want to work and you want people to call you and refer you and ask to sub, I think we've called each other asking to sub each other,
Of course.
And, that's how you get work.
Yeah, you show that responsibility because there's a line out the door of drummers that want to work that shift.
And it's a business, like I said earlier. Yeah. You have to think about, how do I maintain my business? Do I have a retirement plan? What's is my retirement plan my next gig? Or am I gonna put some money away? Get some type of investment going, because there's gonna come a time. Yeah. Like right now, you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, you're on the road, you're drinking free beer, you're riding on a bus, girls are going woo.
Yeah,
that doesn't happen. Even with that big gig you have, 10 years down the road, that gig might go away. And you're going to look for another gig, but you're 10 years older, and they want the new guy.
Yes.
And you're not, you're not the young guy anymore.
Yep.
So what do? Do you want to stay and continue to be a musician, or are you going to be jaded and get out of music and do something else because you're not happy with it?
Right.
I've tried to find ways to keep drumming.
Yeah.
Then that's why I kind of came off the road, is because I wanted to. I wanted to chase my dream, not the artist's dream.
Yeah.
When you're on the road, you're sitting in the back of the van or on the bus, and you're the lowest guy on the totem pole.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not playing on the records.
Yes. Yeah.
You're just replaceable. For $5 less, they can find somebody.
Yeah.
Whose feet don't smell, who cleans up after themselves. Right. So, it's not like you're a big rock star because you're on their bus.
Right. Well, can we talk a little bit about kind of taking a step back and talk about some of the people that you've worked with?
Are those your notes?
These are my notes.
You can see that small print, man.
I'm going by memory.
Okay.
They're just shapes and colors, man. At this point, really, I'm resisting that.
As I reach for my readers.
Yeah. I am probably 2 days away from that.
Oh, I thought I was just hungover all the time, It was like, I can't see that. I must just be hungover. Wait, I haven't drank this week, but I still can't see.
I know.
And then it was like, my 40th birthday, I put them on in a drugstore and was like, wow, okay.
I could see this well all along. Actually, you know what? Before we go back to who you were working with, tell me about the tech thing, because I think that's a very unique thing. And I have thanked you many times without you being there. When I've walked in and I see felts and I see washers and I see new heads.
There's new cymbal stands at Layla's. She just bought 3 new cymbal stands, so y'all know.
Some of those clubs, and maybe somebody calls, hey, can you play this club? I've never played there before. And of course, I get on Facebook and I find like Nashville Drummers Group. And I said, hey guys, what's the drum set like at this thing? Do I need to bring, because there are some clubs down there where you're not involved or they're unaffiliated with keeping the kits together, that you have to walk in literally. I might as well bring my whole damn kit.
Right.
Because I have to walk in with my hardware case along with my cymbal, snare drum, pedal, and all that stuff. Because there's nothing but just a skeleton of a kick drum with a broken spur.
Yep, the tom mounts loosey goosey.
Yeah. And the factory heads from 1992.
Hey man,
on the bottom.
They worked in 1992.
Right. What do you mean you need new drum heads? So for those who don't know, there's. Gosh, how many clubs are down there between 2nd Avenue and Broadway?
Well, I'll tell you, on the 400 block between 4th and 5th on Broadway, there's 18 stages on the weekend. On that
and
one
all
block.
Playing at the
They're all playing at the same time.
Yes.
That's just that one block.
Okay. So every one of those stages has a drum set.
Has a house kit.
Has a house kit in there, and so you know that they just get beat to all shit.
12 hours a day. And beyond 12 hours a day, every 4 hours, someone's adjusting this wing nut, that cymbal height, that tom stand. So that gear is getting put through the paces with your own gear. You set your tom mount one time, and then you put it in your case, you take it out of your case, you throw your tom on it. You're not adjusting the wing nut and moving this, and so it's just constant
I think
abuse.
I was kind of just pulling on a tom, and you're like, "Hey, man, it's got a wing nut right there."
Who, me?
Yeah.
That was not me he's referring to.
No, it was you. You busted my balls, man. So, yeah, that's true. So there's how many clubs out of those are you?
I do 8 kits.
8 kits.
Yeah. So
and what does that involve?
7 clubs, and so just started at the stage with Brad.
Yeah.
And I said to him, hey, can I get a change this drum head? Yeah, sure. Hey, the cymbal stand's broken. Do you mind if I fix it? And he's like, no, man, go ahead. And then after a couple of times, I was like, why don't I just pay you to maintain these kits? And it was just like, okay. And then so there were 4 clubs right there, that I was doing the kits on, and then I went to 3 other clubs that I knew the owners or played in, and said, "Hey, I'm doing this for Brad," and they're kind of the benchmark down there is Brad Sanderson Rubel's clubs.
Yep.
And so they were like, "Well, if Brad's hiring you, sure, we'll do it."
Yeah.
And so then I've got these accounts, and I go in once a week, and clean, just kind of dust and check for felts and wing nuts and that type of stuff. And then if there's a problem, I fix it.
Yeah.
And, every so often I change the heads. Mm-hmm. And it's that's a little tough because I don't want to change the heads necessarily too often, because then the clubs are going to be like, wait a minute, we're spending a lot more money than we thought, but I want to keep the kits maintained and the drummers happy by changing them kind of just enough. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of a line there where, it might not be perfect, but at least I'm still here kind of maintaining it, where if it was changing the heads every other week, they'd pull the plug.
I think for a lot of people that play and certain types of bars and stuff like that, honky tonks, it's hard to. I think it gives a lot of credit to those places that say, "Hey, man, there's this drum set that most people know nothing about." That they're like, "Man, I'm going to make this sound good." But also, man, to your credit, probably unknowingly, you created this extra work.
Oh, it's
for yourself.
I've got a Facebook page and business cards, whatever, to try to get other work. And it's funny to go to other clubs and to try to be like, hey, I'm doing this for these guys. You want to pay me a little bit of money every week? And I'll mean, nah, we really don't need it. We got a guy, he'll come in, the drummer on the Tuesday night 10 o'clock shift, he'll come in and bring an extra head if he thinks it needs it, and so maybe that happens, or the spur breaks and, they're taping it to a bar stool so they can get through the gig. And thankfully, I have the people at Mapex and most definitely Joe Hibbs, who's passed recently, to thank for this, because he was really invested in making sure that the Mapex kits that were on Broadway sounded and worked well. And anytime I needed parts or replacement stands, Joe would always be like, sure, hey, let's go to lunch. Come on out. And I'd go out there and, there'd be, hey, I need a wing nut for the snare stand. And he'd be like, well, I got this extra snare stand. Just take the stand,
That's
and
great.
just so, it's through people and Jeff out there now at Mapex that, makes it very easy. And Remo, they're basically donating heads basically for what they're charging for them. So that people can see their product and to give to the community of all the drummers that get to play on these kits, because there are just so many different drummers that are now playing on Mapex Remo heads that necessarily hadn't got to try that gear out before.
It's full. I mean, they're investing. They're pretty much endorsing every drummer that's down there. When I walk down there, and I've heard the first time I played was an Emperor Classic.
Clear Vintage Emperor.
Yeah. Was on a kit down there.
Yeah, they're great heads.
And I went and bought a set. It worked.
As a kid, my sister would put the stack of 45s on, Motown records, and give me my bottle, and dance to the Supremes. And my brothers, then I got older, and they were listening to Mahavishnu Orchestra and the Allman Brothers and Joe Cocker, Mad Dogs Englishmen. And then when I started playing, it was Alice Cooper and Elton John. And then in high school, it was the Cars and Blondie and all the new wave stuff. And I always listened to, like the Dregs and Mahavishnu and some of the more, fusiony types, but I was never that player. I wasn't the choppy technique guy. I was the get the room, the feel good groove guy. So I was in a band called the Hibachi Brother Barbecue Big Band, which was a 12-piece band with cello, accordion, berimbau, just African instruments, xylophone. And we played international dance music. And we opened for Sun Ra. I shared the stage with Sun Ra.
That's pretty freaking cool, man.
That's pretty freaky. His drummer played my kit. And then I got out of that band and I saw an ad for a country band. And it was like, well, I hadn't played that style of music.
Which country?
I did all the other countries. And so I started playing country, and I loved it because within the country music, there's so many different styles. There's swing, there's blues, there's bluegrass, there's rock and roll. And I've always liked playing different styles. And so it was like, well, here's this one category that's got all this stuff wrapped into it. And I just kind of dove in.
And you're thinking, I want to do this for the rest of my life, or were you just thinking, I just want to play drums?
I just want to play drums. And then I remember seeing, a picture of Steve Gadd. In a magazine. It was a Billboard magazine, and it was like, session drummer. What's that mean? Oh, he gets to play, and he plays all these different types of music with all these. Wow, that's what I want to do. And it just, just got bit.
And did you have a teacher that exposed you to this different kinds of music?
I had different teachers, so learning to read notation, and then I played in the I got kicked out of band like in 7th grade. I was in symphonic band, and I was a troublemaker, so I got kicked out of band. And then when I got to high school, I was in choir and everything. And I can't sing, but I was hanging out in choir.
Sure.
And the band director was my brother played in band. And so, he knew my brother, and then he was kind of like, well, I'll let you into the jazz ensemble. And so he let me into the jazz ensemble, but I only got to play the rock and roll songs. And the other guys played all the jazz stuff, and they kind of looked at me like, man, you're not in band. How come you're in here with us,
Yeah.
Kind of gave me the cold look.
Yeah.
And then got in an original, 80s, kind of new wave band, and then just kept going from there.
Right.
And it was like, yeah, this is what I want to do. It was fun.
And where were you growing up?
Connecticut.
That's right. So what made you decide? I mean, you said you were working with a country band, but what made Nashville the place to go?
Darren Favorite, who's a great guitar player in town. He's with Tom Hurst Loud Jams. And does Nashville drummer jams. Yeah. He's in the house band a lot of time.
What's his name again?
Darren Favorite.
Yeah.
He plays with Tracy Lawrence now.
Yes, I met him.
Yeah.
Right.
And his wife was from Connecticut, so he was living at that time. He was living up in Connecticut, and he came and joined our band, our country band, because we were the big country band in the area. And so we worked together for about 5 years, all over the Northeast. And he was moving back to Nashville. And when he moved back to Nashville, it was like the players that we could get that were as good as him could only play weekends. And the players that could play all through the week, like what we were doing, like Long Island on a Wednesday night, they weren't as good of a player.
Yeah.
And so it's just like, well, let's go check out Nashville.
Yeah.
And so I came down, and he was working with a band, and Trey Gray was the drummer.
Yeah.
And so he introduced me to Trey. He's like one of the first friends in town.
Yeah.
And, his stepdad and mom were doing the gospel show on the Opry, Jimmy Snow and Dottie Snow, and so he introduced me to them, and I went out to the Opry.
Yeah.
And so I came down for like a month in November of '92, and then when I decided to move in April of '93, they had just lost their drummer at the gospel show, and they kind of knew me from back in November, and
2 days later,
yeah, boom, step in.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And then you ended up working, doing some road gigs. Becky Hobbs.
Yep. That was an audition. I'd been auditioning for Opryland and just all these different gigs, and just figured that I didn't have a lot of experience auditioning, so I'm just going to audition for everything.
Yeah.
Just to get that experience and know how to handle it. And Becky was a gig, and I've told her this. Sorry, Becky, but it was something I really don't want this gig, but I'll just go and audition for it.
Yeah.
And when we counted off the songs and started playing, that crew that was on that audition, we just clicked. And we just locked in, and we just all fell together. And she hired that whole band right there. And that was my first road gig in Nashville.
And that lasted a while?
That lasted probably 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
95 or something.
That's a decent run.
Yeah. And then I started working with Hank III.
Yeah.
After that.
Yeah.
And we played Japan, the Blue Notes in Japan, and we played festivals over in Europe. And then from there, Rhonda Vincent, who was kind of coming, she came from the bluegrass and to do a country foray on Giant Records. And so I was with her for a couple of her CDs.
Okay. Did you play on the CDs? No. Okay.
No. And the Hank CD, we were lined up to play on the Hank CD. The band was, and then I got fired. I mean, in the day before I got fired, I was the band leader, and so Hank and I were on the Shelton. We were on the bus, and we're talking about the session coming up in like a month and what we're gonna do and how we're gonna put it together and everything like that.
Yeah.
And we stopped about 45 minutes outside of town to load up, to gas up. Well, you know.
Right, sure.
And the road manager, who worked with Hank Jr., went in the truck stop and sat down and ordered a meal. And he's in there just drinking coffee, bullshitting with the waitress.
45 minutes outside of town.
Right. So, and we're with Hank, we still got our in-town gigs. We're still trying to maintain our Broadway accounts.
Exactly.
Because we're not gone every Friday or every Saturday.
Oh, I know it, yeah.
And you're trying to maintain all that. And it's like, well, I got guys in the band, Al, that, they got a gig, tonight.
Sure.
We're just getting fuel. Hey, don't rush me here. I'm talking to Sweetie,
Yeah.
And I rubbed them the wrong way, pushing. And so I get a call the next day. Hey, we're going to make a change.
Oh, my gosh. You talk about being the low guy on the totem pole.
Yeah. Yeah. And even with the band leader, moniker.
Yes.
Oh, right. And getting paid for it, but,
Yeah.
I was just devastated, at that time. And I went in, and one of the managers that worked with Jack was Stan Barnett. And I'm sitting in there after I got cut loose. I went into the office. They made the decision. I went over to Stan's office, and I'm sitting there talking to him. And he said to me, come on, John, you've been fired before. It's no big deal. And I thought, Stan, I haven't been fired before.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about, okay, I've got to learn how to handle this. This is part of the business.
Yeah.
I've got to learn that, this doesn't have anything to do with me as a player or even me as a person. Mm-hmm. If anything, I was fighting for my guys so that they could get their gig, get to their gig.
Sure.
But, you start thinking about the money, and I lost this artist gig, and we were going to record, and you got to get out of bed the next day and still believe in yourself and put your boots on and, still stand tall and do what you do with confidence.
Yes.
Like getting talked down in a session before, hey, I play music, not patterns, and still drive the bus,
Yes, yeah. Shake it off and just go perform and just not let that affect.
Become who you are, yeah.
Yes.
I auditioned for Gary Lewis and the Playboys.
Gary Lewis and the Playboys.
Who had these big 60s records and, and Jerry Lewis's son. And I auditioned for the gig. I had a couple friends in the band. Billy Dean's piano player was the musical director for this. I can't remember his name.
Brent Rader?
Blonde hair. He was a little older than me.
Okay, no, it's not Brent.
So I go in, I do the audition, and if you don't know this, I'm left-handed. I play a left-handed kit.
Yeah.
Like, Phil Collins or Morgenstein, but not like them. But and so I get a call 10:30 that night after the audition. Hey man, you got the gig. I'm like, great. We'll get you all the material. You nailed it.
What year was
you're
this?
The guy.
Do you remember when?
This is 7 years ago or something.
Okay.
Maybe.
Okay.
It's like, you're the guy. I'm like, fantastic, great.
Yeah.
So, I go to bed. I got the gig. All of a sudden, 7:30 in the morning, I'm getting a phone call. 7:30. That's kind of early. Like, hey, Gary didn't really realize it during the audition that you're left-handed. And he likes to get behind the kit and play a couple songs during the show, so we hired another drummer.
Jeez.
And with Gary Lewis and the Playboys, he always had a double bass drum kit with the logo Gary Lewis on one bass drum and the Playboys on the other. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking, I'd been thinking, wow, so I'm going to get a double kit, get an old 60s kit, and, and set it up lefty-righty, so that he can sit back there and play.
Yeah.
Because I know he's going to want to do that.
Yeah.
But before any of that conversation even came up, they'd already hired someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not about you.
Right.
It's what it.
Right. It's like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's you just.
So it sucks.
It sucks. It totally sucks. Yeah.
But.
You gotta go. You
had the gig for 9 hours roughly.
Yeah.
So how fully invested? But still, you go to bed. Yeah. I'm working, but this is great. I'm gonna be.
Your wife thinks you're a rock star.
Yeah.
And then you wake up the next morning and you're pulling that MAPCO application back out.
That's right. But I thought that you were. Yeah.
When I first came to town, I met Milton. And Mike Milton Sledge. And Mike invited me to a session Milton was on. And Milton let me sit in the drum booth like you got to do, while he's tracking a record, and I'm sitting right by his floor tom. And it's just like, that's Milton Sledge, the G-Men,
Yeah.
And I'm like, his tom, right up close to it, it just sounded just a little off to me, you know what I mean? But you go in and you listen on tape, and it sounds great. And I found that to be the key, that like, even if there's a house drum kit there, use the house drum kit.
Right.
Because that's what they're used to hearing.
Sure.
That's what that engineer is used to hearing. So for you to bring in, your $10,000 whatever, it's just going to be extra time for the engineer who's, going to be talking to the producer while you're in the drum booth and you can't hear them.
Yeah.
And, it's just not quick. And that's one thing they want in Nashville is, they want a 2-minute drum check and then roll.
Right. No, I think that's really important. If you're in with your band, with your sound, maybe there's a unique setup or a large drum set, or maybe it's a prepared kit or something tricked out, there might be a situation where you want to bring in what you're doing. But if it's anything besides maybe some cymbals and a variety of snare drums, house kits work for the demo sessions, for the quick master session or album project that you're working on. Yeah, it's very true. And I think if you're using the house engineer, they're as much a part of the sound as you are, if not more so, because they're helping put all that together to make music. It makes perfect sense. Yeah, I've asked that, call ahead of time. Do you guys have a house kit? What's going on with this?
Yeah.
And yeah, we do. Cool. There was a session I did recently where there was a drum booth and it was very small, and there was and I play a 4-piece kit, and there was like 5 or 6-piece drum set, and there was no room to move anything, and the ride cymbal was right in my face, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? I can't scoot it back. There's actually no room to do that. And it kind of freaked me out. And like, well, here's the song, and it was Brushes.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and then if you're left-handed,
I know.
And you walk into that room.
That's what I'm saying, man.
You really think, God, it's just Brushes.
Yeah. I want to ask you about this Dukes of Hazzard reunion tour.
Yeah.
That was
great.
I mean, a lot of us grew up, watching these guys, and then find out later that they're singers, and you're like, what? What's going on with that?
Yeah, Schneider had like 10 number ones.
Yes.
And he got his record deal without his name on the tape.
Oh.
Because he
didn't use it.
Yeah, he didn't want anyone to know who he was.
Yes.
He didn't want to get the deal because he was John Schneider. He wanted to get it based on his voice.
Yeah.
And, and he did. And he had a string of hits,
Wow.
And then Tom, I worked for Tom first. We were very fortunate. We were on retainer, which means that we got a check every month. And then on top of the check, we got show pay also.
Oh, wow.
Where, if your salary, that's one thing. But retainer just meant that we're going to be there for him. Because Tom wasn't always working real steady, but he wanted to have the same band.
Yeah.
So, we'd work 2 or 3 months. We'd be off for a couple months, and we'd work again. And he'd keep paying us so that he knew that we'd still be there.
That's awesome.
And then eventually he booked these Dukes of Hazzard reunion gigs, and Schneider came on board, and Sonny, the sheriff, Enos.
Okay.
He came along and emceed the show, and
cool.
I mean, it was just such a part of Americana.
Yeah.
It's something that happened with the Wopat thing is we were coming down to the end of the run, and Tom was pulling the plug on Nashville, and he was going to Broadway to work in Annie Get Your Gun. So he was like, I'm really not going to...
Broadway, New York, yeah.
And he's like, well, I'm really not going to, keep the band after this, so retainer's going to be gone. So we've got like one show left.
Yeah.
And I got a call to go play with Jody Messina. She had like 10 dates out in California. And she
Heads Carolina, Tails California.
Yeah. Sorry. yeah. Heads Wopat, Tails California. Well, whatever.
Sorry.
And so I would have to miss the last Wopat show after working with, for like 3, 4 years, 5 years with Tom.
Right.
But it was the last show, and there was nothing after it.
Yes.
And Jody was 10 guaranteed 10 shows.
Yeah.
And and it could turn into a gig,
Yeah, sure.
And so I was talking to Tom's T-shirt girl, talking to her about this, and I'm like, I can't do it. I can't do that to Tom. You know, for them to bring in a drummer for one last show after he's kept me on for so long, you know, I just couldn't do it to him. And so she went and told Wopat, and he kept me on retainer for 18 months afterwards, because he appreciated the fact that I didn't.
That's amazing, man.
I didn't pull the plug. And that's such a hard decision to do, especially in this town. Like even with Broadway, you've got a gig and you get called to do something else. Right. You know, how do you handle it? What's the sub etiquette?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, what is the sub etiquette for you in that situation like that?
It's kind of my take on it is, we're here. I'm a businessman. I have to choose what's best for my business, and I have to find opportunities. So when something comes along, I would go to, if something came along and I've got a shift booked on Broadway, I would go to the leader of that shift and say, hey, I've got this opportunity, either a career or to make more money. Do you mind if we find a sub? Someone that, you know, knows the book, can get in here.
Yeah.
And I've given you my commitment, so I'll do it. Yeah. But you know the way this town works, and if I can find somebody, you know, that's the way I.
And there's a time. There's probably a time restraint. Like if it's right up against.
Even if it's right against it, if there's a drummer that's available who's done the gig or knows the gig, then you know
you're in.
I'll put that on the table.
Yeah. Kind of put it in their court.
Put it in their court and say, you know, what do you know, kind of, you know, float it to them and let them decide what to do with it. And generally, they're going to go a couple guys down the list to find a sub, and if not, then you're gonna honor your commitment, you know. But otherwise, you're gonna branch off into this opportunity, you know.
Right.
I guess I'm more of a traditionalist, where if you're going to play a country song, you know, maybe know who played on the record, what his influences were, why was he playing like that, why was Buddy Harman playing on Crazy the way he did, how did he come up with the Ray Price shuffle, what's the difference between Buddy Harman's shuffle and Larry London's shuffle, or Paul Lime and Eddie Bear's. They all play it differently, so you got to know those roots, it doesn't seem like a lot of the newer people know that.
Do they have to know that to play some of these gigs that they're playing?
Well, if you're not playing any traditional music, and you're just playing, you know, more modern country, where Rascal Flatts is as old as you get in your book, then you know, then no. But what's it going to do for you as a player, as a musician? I mean, I want to know styles. I want to, you know, I've played in heavy metal bands. I've played in bluegrass, western swing, country, blues. These are all bands I've been in since I've been in Nashville, and approaching each of them differently. You know, like I'll be playing with the western swing, and I'm pulling out of my Chick Webb book or my Smokey Dacus book, who was the original drummer in country music of the Texas Playboys.
Okay,
but then I'm also pulling, you know, playing AC/DC in another band, you know, or playing Aldine, and I'm thinking Rich Redmond, you know, and thinking, where's Rich coming from? How's Rich approaching this? You know, not that I can play like Rich. Rich is, you know, an animal,
right?
But you know, it's still.
But still, you're not going to play.
I'm not going to play those swing chops, and I'm not going to play the rock chops on the swing stuff, you know.
Yes.
And that's the swing thing is my favorite right now.
Yeah,
because it's just, you know. Just getting to play, because with that western swing, you're kind of laying it down for, you know, 4 beats to the bar.
Yeah.
But there's so many different ways to play it.
Did you have to do any homework?
Oh yeah, I dug deep in the Smokey Dacus, the drummer, and looked at, you know, like YouTube videos.
Yeah. Like
from him being in movies in the 30s and stuff like that, and
what was your takeaway from all that stuff? Like, how did that change you?
It's the roots of what we do, and a lot of it's forgotten. Like on some songs, he's playing a press roll with accents on 2 and 4. You know, with bass drum on 1 and 3 and hi hat on 2 and 4. So it's like.
Oh wow!
You know, da 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 da, and damn, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
You know, I can just play ding, ding, ding through it, but I'm going to bring it back and do it this way.
Yeah.
And it's fun. And the way a lot of the walking shuffle started was, and I'll say this for right-handed drummers out there, in his left hand, he was playing with a brush quarter notes on the snare drum. His foot was on bass drum on 1 and 3, and with his right hand, he would play either 2 and 4 or the swing pattern, ding, 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 ding. But the whole walking came from the 4 pulses on the snare drum with the brush.
So where's his right hand? Is it all on the snare drum?
His
or hi-hat and snare
right
drum?
hand it's either on the rim of the snare drum or on the hi-hat. His left hand is playing quarter notes with a brush on the snare.
Yeah.
And that's that 4/4 pulse.
Yes.
And the bass drum is playing 1 and 3.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you get the walking, but it's from the snare drum. It's not from the 4 on the floor.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. Cool.
And then, so on a verse, you could have it on the rim and then bring it up to the hat, your right hand, for right-handed drummers, have it on the rim and bring it up to the hat for the chorus to build it somewhere, or just play on 2 and 4 and then go to the jazz, pattern for the chorus to give it some build.
Where's the 2 and 4 accent coming from? Are you just landing on the right hand?
It's just the right hand. Yeah, he's playing equal quarter notes with his left hand on the snare drum. But
you're not bringing it down on the snare drum. You're accenting on the hi-hat or on the rim.
You're accenting on the hi-hat. And you got guitars playing on 2 and 4.
Yes.
You got the spank of the plank on the 2 and 4 from the upright bass. You got a banjo maybe or an accordion, and they're chugging 2 and 4. So you already got a 2 and 4 pulse going. It's not like you got to bring it down from behind your head, to accent it. It's and it's just so weird because Buddy Harmon, the way he played the shuffle was he was shuffling with the brush. For you right-handed drummers, he was shuffling with his right hand, and then cross stick or snare drum on 2 and 4.
Gotcha.
And so it's those little differences, And
going back to the quarter note pulse with the left hand brush and the accent, how often are you playing that pattern?
Maybe 3-4 songs.
Okay.
Yeah, and then even and then for a solo, since we're a little more than traditional, I'll go to 4 on the floor for the solo sections.
Okay.
Okay. Just to kind of give it some push, to give it some oomph, and then I'll bring it back down.
Is there a song that you remember that's on?
Let's see, Miles and Miles from Texas. Oh,
cool, yeah.
Yeah. I'm terrible with titles and
I know. I'm the same way.
I'm more like, okay, it's, at 113 and it's quarter notes. And,
I know. I can remember tempos for days.
Yeah.
There's 1,000 numbers to remember. How do I remember that? But I can't remember the name of the damn song.
Right. Miles and Miles from Texas, I think it is.
Yeah.
But that's or Milk Cow Blues is one where I'll do the press roll and then the accents on 2 and 4.
That's really cool. And are you getting a reaction from the players?
Yeah, and just drummers that'll walk by kind of look at you like dogs doing algebra, tilting their head, and it just opens something up within the band, where the volume level is down.
Yeah.
It's and the 2 and 4 that other guys are playing matters, So all of a sudden the lead guitar player is a rhythm instrument, and things like that.
And maybe it allows them to play their role in a traditional way that taking that modern drumming approach wouldn't allow them. What's the name of the band that you work with that does that?
That's Mike Seiler and the Swing Shots.
Okay. And when do you guys play?
Wednesdays 2 to 6 at Legends Corner.
Okay.
And another thing going to the pattern thing that we're talking about, and so you have to listen to what everyone else is playing, and playing that pattern lets the guitar player have some more room.
Right.
So, like for instance, with a traditional Waylon groove, a lot of people think like there's an accent on the end of the hi-hat.
Yeah.
And there's 4 on the floor. Well, what you dig in and listen, and Waylon lots of times on his guitar was playing downstrokes on 1, 2, 3, 4, and there was a hole on the ands. He was playing so heavy on the downbeat that there was this little hole. So in that hole, you hear the hi-hat stick out. Well, the hi-hat's really not accentuating the ands. It's just there's a hole so you hear it.
Yes.
So, but a lot of drummers will think, oh, so I gotta accentuate that part.
4 on the floor, 2 and 4 on the snare drum, and then
and then the anthem, check, check, and that's not it. And lots of times the bass drum's not even playing 4 on the floor; he's playing half notes, with little pushes here and there. Mm-hmm. So you get in a situation, and the song needs that. The song needs that type of pulse. Mm-hmm. But other players on that stage might not know to do that.
Yeah.
So you got to be willing to change your part. Mm-hmm. You can't just say, well, that's not the way it was, and this is the way I'm going to play it. Mm-hmm. You still got to convey the song, and maybe it's going to need a little ands or something like that. Or
And you work with different people, but is there something that people say, hey, John, this, I like working with you because...
Well, I think that I've always kind of felt like I was the guy that if, you're standing out there watching the band or listening to the band that, I'm not going to do anything that's going to make you go, wow, But if you're on the bandstand with me, then you're going to have a better appreciation for what I do.
Yes. Yeah. And that leads me to one last thing I want to talk about is that you said... Was it tomorrow? 23 years ago you moved to town? Yesterday.
Yeah, 23 years ago.
Okay, so it's April 8th. I know this because it's my son's birthday. He's going to be 11. 11 years ago, on April 7th, Steve Gadd was in town for a clinic.
Right.
I know this because I had a gig book. It got double booked, so I was like, well, great, I'm going to go see Steve Gadd. And I think you were playing that night.
I was playing. It was a Monday night.
You missed. No, it was a Thursday night.
Was it a Thursday night?
It was a Thursday night because because I remember Friday because we had a gig on a Thursday night. Gadd came in to Lipscomb University for a clinic. I was there the whole time. I went home. My wife was in labor. We went to the hospital, and he was born at 1:30 in the morning on April 8th. But anyways, I remember running into you, and you said, I didn't get to the clinic, but I walked into a Mapco, and there was Gadd.
There was Steve Gadd, buying a hot dog with like his two, with his bodyguards or whatever.
Right, his handlers from Zildjian.
Right.
Right. And so tell me about that, because I love this story. I've told this story before.
It was just one of those things. It was like I was so bummed that I couldn't go to the Gadd clinic because, of course I love Gadd,
Right.
And so, I'm stopping on the way home to, get a soda or something.
You were working.
I was working. I worked a 6 to 10.
Yeah.
So it's about, 10:35. I'm driving home. I pull over to Mapco, and there's a bus outside. You don't think anything of it, in this town. Yeah. And I go inside, and there's Steve Gadd, putting relish on his hot dog, And it was just, and so I walked up, and I'm nervous. I'm like, hey, Steve, I wanted to come to your clinic tonight, but I couldn't because I was working. He goes, oh, man, that's like so cool. You were working, huh? What kind of gig was it? And it's just like we had a common thing to talk about, and he was just, just thought it was, that was honorable,
Yeah. For some reason, I thought he said something. He asked who you were. Like, what's your name?
Well, a problem could be part. Yeah,
that was a part.
Yeah,
of it.
No, he did actually.
And you said John Root, and you said I think I've heard of you, and you said no, no, you haven't. You haven't.
Well, you people haven't heard of me either. Okay.
No, but I mean, I think what it is that and. It's like, I think it's important for people to realize that, like, there is so much more to what we do. There's so much more to music and the music business than what we read about in the magazines, who we see on the cover of this, sometimes who we read in the liner notes of our favorite artists or whatever. There is a lot more to it. There's players out there working really hard, diversifying, making a living, balancing work, family, all these things. And that to me, it just personified it.
I did 226 gigs last year.
Holy crap.
So, I mean, to me, that's success to me.
Well, and you have a daughter, your grandfather, you have 3 stepsons.
Yep.
Man,
a wife, a house, it's they're happy, I'm not, missing things and been on the road a whole bunch, and I've been, there when they got in trouble at school, I had to go help them out or to give them a ride or do any of that stuff. And that's success. I feel very fortunate.
Yeah.
And when you see people out there dancing and having a good time and you're up there making that happen, that's pretty cool.
Well, I can tell you this, man. When I was going around, I was looking at pictures, and I was thinking, let's see if I can find some good pictures of John. We can use this and see if I can find some. Every picture I see of fans shooting of you, you've got this huge smile on your face. Me, I look, I'm mouth breathing,
I have my moments.
No, but I love that, man. There's a lot of joy, and it's just
it just comes from being a certain level of ignorance, that keeps me happy.
It's bliss. Well, man, I appreciate you being ignorant enough to agree to do this.
Oh yeah, no. Hey, I want to make sure to mention, I've had a lot of friends and support in Nashville. And that this community here, like with you, Matt, you just get to hang out and talk. It's and calling each other for gigs or work or this. It's really not as backstabbing,
No.
especially within the drummer community.
Yes.
And the companies that I endorse have always treated me, very, very, very nicely, and I appreciate Sonar and Peisty and Regal Tip and Joe Montanari, drums,
right?
All stuff I endorse, and I have to thank them because there's nothing like I said this at the session yesterday. To use great sounding gear, and to just it just makes our job so much easier. Yeah, for sure. And you've been with Sonar for a while. For like 20 something years.
Yeah.
And Peisty the same. And
really?
Montanari even longer than that.
Yeah.
Montanari probably since the 90s.
That's cool. John, thank you, man. I appreciate you, dude.
Yeah, man.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So there was John. We go back quite a ways. I've known John since I've moved to Nashville, so probably a little over 15 years. We edited quite a bit out, but one of the things we talked about was defining success on your own terms, and John has done that quite a bit. Kind of where we went with that was he's a father, and he's actually a grandfather. Just recently, his daughter had her second baby, and defining success on your own terms means many different things. And for John, it means being able to play drums and have a family, and be able to kind of nurture those two things at the same time. And I really respect that, and it's really cool. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. It was great hanging with John and getting some extra time to talk. Once again, I want to thank Mike Jackson for his technical help. Stay tuned next week for Zach Albetta. He'll be doing the host duties for next week's podcast. Reminder, we're part of the Merge Network, which includes Nick Ruffini's Drummers Resource and Daniel Glass's podcast. Check out those podcasts. And I appreciate everyone listening and commenting and keeping in touch. Your input is really important. It helps us grow. So keep on listening, and hope to see you around. Thanks. Bye-bye.